I guess I'll go first. Hi, just in the order of like, it's a story of a lovely lady. Anybody remember that reference? My name's Elana Gorbatyuk. I'm the CSO globally for Sidley. We've developed this toolkit that we'll talk to you about that's been quite helpful for us in sort of getting our clients to decision make and also plan, develop strategies that they can action fairly quickly. So we're excited to share that with you today.
And I'm Matt Foulk, also from Sidley, head of strategy, and very excited to be sharing the frameworks and cases with you all today.
And I'm Derek Last. I'm a director in our business and experience design practice at Sidley. Had a hand in developing some of the frameworks here, so really excited to have the conversation today and share this with you all.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for coming. Elana, you are now co-host, so you feel free just to go ahead and share whenever you see fit.
Okay, sounds great. So this isn't meant to be a doomsday slide, even though it's like really red. Really, wait, I'm just going to move you guys over. Whoops. Okay, that's not working. So I'm just going to leave you where you are. Like I said, I think that what we've tried to do is help our clients respond for the now and the next. Like with everything in advertising, we always think that, creativity can come to the rescue, but sometimes decision making needs a helping hand. And so this is our way to get us closer to creative solutioning for our clients in sort of 3 different steps. And what I'll do is I'll introduce you to what those 3 aspects are, and then we'll take you through just a couple of quick examples of some of the work that we've been putting out that hit on some of those steps, and then we'll go into the frameworks with Derek. Followed by, we'd love to be able to have an open discussion. Feel free to think through as we go through them. Any possible questions that your brands might be going through, maybe you're having, maybe you just want sort of another brain on it, so you can white label it, whatever. We can just maybe think through some of it together. We find that's been really helpful for us. So the three stages really are is connect and adapt for the now. And what I think probably most of us have been seeing in the last little bit are creative and also strategies really just around connect. Sadly, we've also seen brands just wait way too long and not do anything, or perhaps just push a sale as though nothing different is happening. But in stage 1, the connect is really important because it recognizes that your clients are your clients, whether they're buying from you right now or not. And then stage 2 is adapt, when brands are adapting to what's happening. So I think that's the current state of where we are now. So what would have to change really for the brand to remain timely, effective? How can we create value that starts now and maybe fuels more into the next? And then stage 3, which I would say that most of our clients are really feeding into right now, is how can we really set up brands for what's coming on the other end of things, which in some cases is as soon as a couple of weeks from now. Most of the work that we're looking at, particularly in adapt and stage 3, are ones that are rooted in action. So behavior, what you do, not what you say. And that's been really important for us. Sorry, I'm just going to move. There's something that's bugging me here in terms of the view. Okay. All right. So the first case study, which is really fun, is out of our Paris office, and it's for skin, the sexual health client, or condoms and lubes and all that kind of stuff. the position of skin has always been around intimacy. So you'll see that everything is still predicated on that role, but really specific to what is happening at the time. So you know, we know that we know that at the very beginning of this, you know, one of the first social kind of lines to come through was "Stay the F home," and then of course we used skin. We played off of that to basically say "Stay" and "F at home." And so the work that's been related to this has been really interesting for us. You know, I'll skip to the work, but of course, really positive engagement, really focusing on intimacy, in fact, from a content perspective, even though we're using the F word in a really interesting way. What they're seeing of what skin is seeing, of course, and we're just calculating the sales. I know that it's a pretty big increase year over year for the last 2 months, but I'm still waiting to calculate the CAGR on it. I'll come back to you with it. But what we're seeing, of course, is that they're clearly relevant, and they're a brand that's really speaking and activating against their role. So here's some more of some of the work that's happening here. You know, go to town without leaving the house. You know, these are more Addy ads, and then we've created also. We've created kind of a calendar that you could use to be able to plan your activity weekly, and this comes with content and kits and is contextually placed. So Moan Day instead of Monday, Tush Day instead of Tuesday, and really being there as, you know, playing up their role as inspiration, but really more rooted in intimacy. This is a quick overview of that calendar that is really related all over social. Here's the other activation, which I think is really smart, is, of course, Pornhub is on the rise in terms of viewership, but also, you know, a stat globally is that about 70% of men, more than 50% of us, and over 75% of millennials get their sexual education from porn. And so what they did here was we used porn stars to help us talk about foreplay and intimacy, but on a porn hub. You know, of course, playing up the role of the brand. So here's just two sort of spots. There's short ones also, 15 seconds, and then it leads into a whole bunch of content related to foreplay.
Skip an ad, but you shouldn't skip foreplay.
So there's that one. There's this one too, another porn couple, and really them talking about how porn does not teach you about intimacy when you get into some of the deeper content, which I think is interesting too.
You can skip an ad. You shouldn't skip foreplay.
All right, so that's some of the work for skin happening and being distributed globally. This is some of the content that you'd be able to see when you enter the hashtag. So there's like inspiration, there's advice, all of that that's being distributed across channels. So from from intimacy to meat, Matt.
Thanks, Alana. So Alana only shared that skin case study to make me blush. So just so everyone's clear, that's why we shared that case. Anyway, so yeah, so meat, maple leaf. So this is an example from Toronto, Sidley, in the realm of the connect phase, which we'll hear more about from Derek after the cases in a moment. I'm going to let Elana drive, if that's okay. So Maple Leaf as a brand purpose has always stood for raising the good in food and doing better within the food category. And what they'd already observed worryingly, as I'm sure some of you may have already heard, is that food insecurity is a really big issue in Canada, sadly. So pre-COVID, the issue of food insecurity had been documented by a few organizations, and some of the statistics out there don't make for great reading in terms of 1 in 8 households in Canada unfortunately suffer from food insecurity pre-COVID. That translates to 4.4 million people. And sadly, within those statistics, 17% of children aged under 18 live in a food insecure household. And like I said, even before COVID hit, these figures were trending in the wrong direction. And so when COVID hit, some of their partners, such as the Food Community Centre, reported that they'd seen a surge in terms of demands and usage for food relief at their various location centres across Canada. And some figures were, they were quoted as saying there'd been a doubling of demand in terms of requirements of food relief, very sadly. So Maple Leaf sprung into action with us as their advertising partner to do something about this, and also to take the Canadian feeling, which we were seeing through various sort of market research around this feeling of helplessness, loss of control. And so we thought we could do good in the world by drawing Canadians' attention to an initiative we decided to call parttogether.ca, taking this idea of rallying Canadians and rallying organizations under the Maple Leaf flag to get food to those people that really needed it at these challenging times. So a very simple message of donate whatever you can through the websites of Food Banks Canada or community food centres. And so the idea, as mentioned, a part together, giving Canadians a way to tackle this problem of food insecurity at this additionally challenging time. And I'm going to show the work, and hopefully the technology cooperates.
I'm going to go back in. There we go. Okay. And yes.
Streets, this is what it looks like when Canadians do their part. But an empty fridge is a reality for millions of Canadians during this crisis. That's why Maple Leaf is donating $1 million to support emergency food relief, reaching people in your community who urgently need it. Staying apart doesn't mean we can't stick together. Join us in donating at aparttogether.ca.
So that's the work, and it was turned around in under a week. Fairly straightforward, fairly hard hitting, doing good in the world, connecting what is needed in communities to the Maple Leaf brand purpose, and raising much needed funds for those very important charities in the Canadian market. What follows are a couple of additional pieces from social, again, using the Apart Together platform to drive donations. So taking Maple Leaf's initial $1 million commitment and encouraging others to do the same, their target being sort of $2 million. And I have it on good authority that they're making really good headway right now in terms of the total money raised. And I think there's one more. Yes, and here's what it looks like on a cell phone. Again, giving information about these critical food centres and charities like Food Banks Canada, and explaining how this is an important issue for Maple Leaf Foods. More to come from Maple Leaf. And then secondly for me is Lowe's Canada. So again, in the phase of Connect, Elana, if you wouldn't mind clicking through, that'd be great. Thank you. Again, what we did, this is the Montreal Sidley team, is again looked at the brand purpose for the organization. And for Lowe's Canada, the idea is helping Canadians take care of their homes. So as this crisis began to unfold, we asked, how can this brand lean in and help Canadians at this time? So the team sort of struck upon a very interesting insight around, we do a lot for our homes, but now more than ever, when we're faced with these four walls, space matters for our well-being. And there's numerous studies out there that show that our physical built environment has a big role to play in terms of how we feel and how we think on a day-to-day basis. So the idea is around flipping it and saying, instead of taking care of your home, let your home take care of you, which nicely dovetails with the government's message of staying indoors. And again, I'll let the work do the talking. So that's the spot. I can definitely reassure you that it sounds much better with sound, but I think you get the idea that it's using a lot of found footage of people attempting home improvements with mixed success, and again sort of stressing the importance of staying safe and staying at home. So in that way, Lowe's Canada supporting the government's very important message to help flatten the curve, as well as sort of introducing some of the ways that Lowe's Canada as an organization has responded to this crisis, which is shown on the next slide. Oh. And that is in terms of different sort of ways of servicing consumer needs. So they're offering free parcel delivery and free curbside pickup, which actually I tried out yesterday, and it was fairly successful. So that's just another example of how Sidley's teams have responded to the unfolding crisis for Lowe's Canada, Skin, and Maple Leaf Foods.
Yeah, I was going to say for Lowe's, there's also, this is leading into a program, a broader program into the next spring, summer, and beyond. So it was really important for us to lean into the role, but design the program, not just the comms around it. And maybe the other thing that I would just want to sort of take note on, if there's any questions around that, is all the different approaches to production that have happened since March in each of these different brands, as they've all been quite different. So I think that that's important to keep in mind as well, is how do we produce so it doesn't all feel like another Zoom spot, I think is really important going forward, and not that easy to do.
Elana, just on the subject of production, so there was 3 quite different ads there. Were they, a couple of them, as Matt mentioned, had used recycled content? The first one from Skin, was that pre-shot anyway, but it was a bit serendipitous that it then became extra relevant, or was that something that was made?
No, in fact, it was made. It was made, and I'm getting the details from the ECD there, but there's the production, how they're finding ways to do production in Europe, I find is really fascinating, and might just be another ICA call that you'd want to invite them on. because I think, you know, they're doing a mix of stuff that was cut in the back coupled with new stuff, and then just doing a lot of post. And they've been really successful in it. There's other examples that I can't show yet because it's not out, for the luxury sector, which I like look, which is so luxe, and I can't believe that they're pulling it off. Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to the details of how they're doing it, but they're finding kind of like abandoned areas with like a single person doing something, and then they're relying a lot on post, and thinking through that in pre as well. How do they, you know, montage it together?
That's great. We have a weekly production call with production leaders, and it's been a hot topic of discussion about the kind of top 5 people that you need on a shoot to make it happen. So yeah, if there is any learnings from Europe, it would be interesting to kind of take that and then disseminate it to the group. But yeah, that was great.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. Maybe just the last one, and then we'll just talk about the toolkit more, is work that we're also really proud of that comes out of our LA, Seattle, and a bit of our Montreal team, basically coming together on something called the Plate Fund. So this is brand identity work as well as social, full programming and funding. So anybody who's having trouble designing campaigns for funding, this is a good one to maybe earmark. So we are contacted by the Schultz Foundation, of course, Starbucks, to help fund, to help design basically branding for, all they had was pretty much the name, the Plate Fund. So we developed the tagline, the identity, all within about 24 hours. And with the tagline is, it's our turn to serve. So we've developed toolkits, but really basically all this around the identity of a restaurant receipt that we all sort of recognize and understand. And there's a bunch of storytelling I'll take you through. But essentially within 24 hours, the work was baked from 3 different offices. We launched it probably within 48. And then within 2 weeks, they've raised $7 million to help applicants who are basically restaurant workers that are out of jobs, and in a lot of cases, undocumented workers in the area. So we're really proud, really, really proud of this work because it's actually making good on a bad situation, on a difficult situation. So this is some of the work that's gone out. Some of the, you know, the social work examples here. My personal favorite is sort of passing the plate over. So as you donate, having a ritual that exists where everybody takes a plate and passes it and tags somebody else over to be able to do the same. We quite like when branding takes on a ritual as well as a role. So that was baked into the toolkit overall, a really simple idea, you know, that came together real fast and most importantly made really good money for the people that needed it. Here's some more of that awareness work on all of their restaurants. Yeah. So, so that's it for some of the stuff that we've been working on. Like I said, what you saw right now is a lot of the stuff that was around connect and somewhat adapt. And now what we're working on is a lot of the stuff that goes into the advanced bucket, which is, I would say, very topical. So I'll let Derek kind of take you through how we could help you guys do that as well.
Thanks, Elana. I don't have as provocative of a transition as Elana gave to Matt there, but I'll do my best. Yeah, so as Elana had mentioned, we developed out a toolkit to help our clients kind of make their way or navigate their way through this time. And most importantly, make decisions that can lead to creative outcomes. And so this is, we have kind of a condensed version of the toolkit that's available online through our website. And then there's a much more kind of robust one with many tools in it that we're using currently in direct contact with our clients. So the first section around Connect, Elana, if you can just go back to that. We're using this because it's a really quick shorthand to get some thinking down on paper around your customer experience and how you can start to actually engage with people today, given all of the changes that have taken place. So really quick tool to map out how your customers used to think, feel, and behave, how they're now thinking, feeling, and behaving. And then based on the role that your brand can play in culture today, how you can, yep, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries, no worries. And then based on the role that your brand can play today in culture, how you can actually start to address some of those emergent thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that your customers are starting to present. So this is a really quick and easy tool to kind of start to map out what your customer experience can start to look like. And it also allows clients to pinpoint different areas of their experience where they can start to intervene with their brand role and their brand purpose to change the experience for the better. The next stage, which is around Adapt, is where we start to get into thinking about existing marketing plans that a client might have created pre-COVID or currently working through as a result of COVID, and start to look at that a little bit critically and think about what's changed dramatically in the world that we need to take account of. And then based on that, what should we start doing that would be new and it's not within our current planning? What should we stop doing? Which is basically looking at stuff that would be a complete waste of money to invest in right now on account of the changing circumstances. And then what are things that are still relevant in your existing plan that you should continue to do? So this is a really effective tool because a lot of clients are in a bit of a middle ground where they're not quite sure when things are going to return back to normal or how they're going to return back and what shape. And so it's a great way to think about, do we have a connection strategy or connect strategy? And what are the implications of that on our existing planning? And what might we need to change in order to accommodate that? And then the third section, which also has an impact on the marketing plan, is the advanced stage. And one of the tools that we use here is around scenario planning. So this specifically looks at when the market makes a return, how can you start to play within those market dynamics? And so we start to think about, what are areas of cultural scarcity right now? So things that are cultural in nature that are quite scarce. So some of the things that we looked at were things like travel and discovery, entertainment within a community setting, the idea of looking good and feeling good and going out and experiencing the world, premium and engaging with luxury brands again, home improvement. So we talked a little bit about that with Lowe's already, but a lot of people are spending a lot of time in their home. So we suspect that there will probably be a resurgence of home improvements once this ends or even right now. A return to progress is around optimism for the future and what that might mean in terms of entrepreneurialism, but also typically what happens at the end of a crisis in some cases is that there's a bit of a baby boom because people are kind of kept indoors, as Skin suggested. Although if you use Skin's products, maybe not. And then the last one is self-care and resilience, which, thinking about the current circumstances and the deep focus on personal hygiene and health, we believe that there's going to be an intense sort of push back into that sort of sector. So we have a conversation with clients just to see where do we think there's a cultural scarcity that's most relevant for your brand and your business. And we start to plot that out alongside another, what we call critical uncertainty, which is something that's highly important to your business and that's going to impact it in a big way, but is highly uncertain. So you can think about this across economic, social, and other cultural lens. For some, it could be uncertainties around trade and what that might do for their supply chain. For other things, it could be something related to politics, and we're not quite sure what the collaboration levels are going to be between different national governments. That might impact our business in a big way, et cetera, et cetera. And so you start to map those two things together, and what you end up getting are 4 plausible scenarios about the future that your brand can start to actually consider and create a response for. We're finding that this is a really effective tool right now because a lot of organizations are caught in a situation where they're waiting for governments to respond. and provide a response. And so they're in a bit of a reactive state when that doesn't need to be the case. We can start to think through what the future might look like or could look like, and start to generate realistic responses now so that when change actually comes, we're prepared for it and we can respond accordingly. So this is a really good tool to start to bring out some of that thinking and start to facilitate what the future might look like and how your client's brand could respond in those futures. So that's a short kind of overview of the toolkit itself. And again, we're finding that it's very successful in helping clients navigate uncertainty and start to make decisions that that result in creative outcomes for them.
That was great, Derek. Really, really useful. And just to confirm, the actual templates, are they available for download somewhere?
I don't think that the actual templates are available. They're in the smaller package, and that you can see them there, and then you can reproduce them, I guess, if you wanted to. But they're not there just to pull and start to use directly.
Yeah, if you go on the article on Sid Lee, we'll send you the link, Paul, as an update. You could just you could download the short kit, and then just if you have to remake it.
I just think it'd be interesting because it was quite small, just to see it a little bit clearer. But that was absolutely great. Thank you so much for sharing that, guys. Derek, just on the kind of mapping, is that something you do with the client then? Is that a collaborative thing?
It is, yeah. So we would facilitate. Are you talking about the scenario planning one in particular?
Yeah.
Or,
the last mapping one, yeah.
So that one would be something where, we try to keep these conversations to somewhere around an hour each. You can start to stagger some of these workshops out. But where we would begin with them is to start to think through what are some of the areas of cultural scarcity and what's a critical uncertainty that we think is important to your business that we would like to consider and imagine around. And then we would go away and quickly map out what those different scenarios are and come back and actually host a bit of an ideation session around how would you then respond to each one of these scenarios. And each one of those responses almost become a creative brief that we can start to take away and start to look at and say, here's how your brand would show up through this strategic response. So it's a collaborative exercise with our clients, and we stagger it out a little bit just to give a bit of breathing room and time to do some of the thinking in between.
And we have multiple stakeholders. What we found helps as well is, sending it out as homework with an intention initially on both the cultural scarcity aspect of things as well as critical uncertainties. And our teams do the same. Then we'll come prepared with multiple sort of maps, and we discuss the validity and the hierarchy of which ones we would focus on with the steerco or with the key stakeholders or decision makers thereafter.
That's great. It seems like a great tool actually, and I guess it helps move you guys from being a reactive partner to someone that is working with them to kind of think of the future and a little bit more long term, I guess. I suppose now that we're becoming a bit more used to this new normal, this tool will become even more valuable compared to the first couple of tools, I suppose. There's a question from Scott around, is this a tool you're using for B2B clients as well as B2C?
Yeah, great question, Scott. Yeah, we have several B2B clients in different parts of the world that we use it for as well. Obviously, what we're looking at in this cultural scarcity piece differs. It's going to shift on the B2B front in relation to the category in which they play. So sometimes it's B2B directly. Sometimes it's also B2B and then B2C. So we need to consider scarcity of the end-to-end consumer as well. So we play around with those as well.
Actually, I just wanted to add, actually, what's brilliant about seeing some of this work up front and then looking at these tools. I don't know if you remember, Matt, way back when we first started, I think probably one of my first ever World Health Organization reports in was all around, apart from Don't Go Dark, which is a separate issue, actually to not sell, but to solution provide. And if you can bring your brand into solution provision, that's brilliant. what I'm hearing from many of the other organizations around the world is lots of agencies are doing, lots of brands, the comms is, dare I say it, it's a bit, oh look, here is a shot of a frontline worker with a TIA. Here is you go, but hang on, what are you actually offering in this scenario? And you see a lot of this being picked up on social. There's a lot of brands actually getting really slammed, I think, for tokenism at times. And what I think this does is it starts to look at positioning. Okay, I am a brand. I have services to provide. I have goods. But where are they necessary? Why are they necessary? This is my solution provision in your moment. In the way they're talking to consumers. The reason I asked the B2B question is actually we did want to have sort of, as you put in this, open dialogue. I'm going to throw the ICA brand into this, and I'm throwing it in because our sister association south of the border is particularly acutely in this scenario, in that their renewals of membership were on the 1st of April, and the 4As is having a hard time, and because for right or for wrong, spend is being decided, and whether membership of an association is etc etc. So I think what's been really interesting about going through this with you and talking about these tools was I've been actually half listening to what you're saying, half thinking, right, okay, our renewals come up on the 1st of September. Where do we apply and what do we look at? Yeah, that's why I asked whether it was applicable for B2B. So thank you for answering that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think some of the things that you're going to look at in terms of, for example, cultural scarcity, specifically to this example, I would look at people's desire to be trained up, which we're seeing highly on the rise. So how much do you give towards, let's call it prizes, as what you're giving to from a membership standpoint versus what you're training up and providing, certifications on. I'd be curious to see, for example, IPA that's opened up to all its members, certifications that are free until October, to see what happens in terms of both desirability to reinscribe the following year, and also affinity towards that brand. Similarly, universities, doing the same. So I think that there's probably something to look at there, at least as an aspect of what might be scarce and highly desirable. Maybe Matt and Derek, you want to add some other things that are smarter?
Yeah, I'd say you pretty much covered it, but the one thing I'm really, and it applies to obviously all brands and all organizations, is there's a website, I think it's coming out of Europe, and it's simply www.didtheyhelp.com. And so it's essentially just a searchable platform, and you can type in any brand or organization, and it gives you an immediate score for what did they actually do during this crisis. And I think it goes back to your point of how you started this question, Scott, around you need to be able to get to solutions, whether you're a consumer-facing brand or a business, a B2B organization or into organization, you need to show how you're proving your value and your worth. So I think the IPA is a great example, and everything that the ICA is obviously doing with calls like this today. But yeah, getting into action and moving beyond conversation is something we're talking about a lot at Sidley.
Yeah. The only other thing that I would add is one of the most revealing things, I think, for a lot of us and clients is the strategic role that brand plays within business. So now more than ever, you start to realize, oh, I need to know who I am so that I can know how I need to behave at this time. And when I know who I am, it makes it so much easier to make decisions. No, this is wrong because it's completely off brand and we would never do this. Oh yes, of course this is right because this is who we are fundamentally. So what we're seeing is that we're able to have the conversation around, how do you connect with people? How do you need to adapt your marketing plan, et cetera? But a lot of these conversations are starting to extend deeper into the business because it's more integrated, the conversation. It requires additional stakeholders. And fundamentally, it's bringing the entire business to bear in some kind of an experience, whether that's B2B or B2C or otherwise. So that's been good in that it's elevating brand into those bigger kind of corporate strategy.
And I would say also it's making, I think that if 2018 and 19 were sort of like the year of like purpose being the major thing that people anchored on, purpose is great. So is having a belief system that's authentic and real. But when you want to get to do something on behalf of people so that it would be really salient, it means that your role can't be bullshit. Like it can't be ephemeral. You have to see that role in action. And so what we would always say is, okay, so, scenario 1 makes more sense than scenario 4 or 3 because, it allows us to really demonstrate our role in action more so than something else. So that becomes sort of a filter for us. And it also becomes a really great opportunity to revisit brand architectures that, for one reason or another, were too rooted in expression or tone in their role versus like actual action. So it allows us to, go back with C-suite and be able to, in Derek's point, align brand to action and to the business.
Yeah, that's great. And and I guess to Derek's point, it's great to get brands, albeit through a very unfortunate event. It is absolutely vital right now. And then on Lana's point about the whole purpose, a lot of brands say one thing and then do another. So it's interesting now that consumers are the ones actually tracking what they actually do and kind of calling BS on it. So yeah, a changing landscape. Any questions from Rodrigo or Derek? Yeah, there's one from Rodrigo. If you don't know Rodrigo, he's strategy at Momentum. Are these exercises revealing new audiences for clients? So are they growing markets?
Of the interactions that I've had with clients so far, a little bit. I think a lot of clients are fundamentally, at least the ones I've engaged with, are focusing on their core consumers and their core customers just to make sure that, am I doing the baseline? Am I meeting the baseline today that I need to meet? And through that exercise in terms of what they can actually offer to people, because it's not just customers. It's not like people wake up every day and they're like, I'm a customer of X, Y, and Z brand. They're a human being first, fundamentally. It starts to reveal kind of the broader value or role they can play in people's lives. So that has, I think, naturally allowed brands to move beyond thinking just about people in terms of these segmented, sort of siloed versions of people, almost caricatures, and thinking more about just human beings and what can we do for people.
And on the other side, I would say it also it focuses attention in some cases on clients that matter, or like clients that really matter to the business, so what we're seeing is if businesses were trickling in and really over focused on acquisition, maybe the shift is more towards designing programming for people as gratitude for the people that continue to stay. And so I think that's really important as well. It allows us to focus on repeat and on community within brands, and I think and also design the kinds of programs where the community itself might be able to create their own new levels of exchange. So it's not just like product and you buy the product. If you're a D2C brand that's been able to carve out a raison d'etre for that platform, for example, or your platform business? What are you doing in programming that allows that community to sort of swell on its own? What are you giving them in terms that they might exchange, on their own? And what value does that have? Does it have more value than purchasing a product? So we're seeing some of that as well in some of our scenario planning come to the rise.
Lovely stuff. A quick question on the brands that you're taking through this process. How brave are they being? So I think it was the first phase, Connect, where you did the kind of mapping out of how the consumers think, feel, and behave differently. That may well inform, I guess, some bigger brand shifts in the way that they behave. Have brands been open to it, and have they been brave, or have they been a little bit timid?
I think it's a varied, it varies client by client. I think to some of the earlier points, some organizations are a better place than others in terms of having clarity around lines of reporting or clarity around brand purpose, which has made decision making more easy. And also the shift from conversation to action more straightforward. I think across the board, across the Siddeley network, across categories and clients, we have seen bravery, and those clients who have expressed bravery or courage in this way to move forward to help people, I think those are the ones that are already ahead. It is obviously a very turbulent time with everyone dealing with a different set of circumstances. But yes, we've been encouraged by the progress that's been made by organizations.
Great. Amazing. Any more questions? While the room thinks about these questions, I'll be sure to circulate this video on our social platforms. I think agencies would be foolish not to kind of take some of the learnings that you guys have implemented already. So thank you so much for that. Any more questions in the room? We'll give them 2 seconds.
No, I just want to thank you guys for sharing all this thinking from your own agencies with the market. And I think we are all on the same boat, right? And from just one thing that I would like to say is, like, from my perspective, we're not doing anything different than we were before, right? We're trying to identify brands' roles, problems brands can solve, and I think what is interesting about this new reality is that we became less of a perfectionists and much more collaborators with our own teams and clients and networks. So it actually made us more of having a leaner approach to everything, but using the same formula that we were using before. So I think that's really like the big shift. And one last comment, I love that, Elana, you just went from saying to doing, and your first example was very much doing. So thanks for that.
That's great.
I would totally echo that, Rodrigo. It's great to see a strategy model that has been shortened and can be expedited and implemented really quickly. But then on the back of that, it's great to see some actual implementation that's been done in a really smart way using, clever small production teams in Europe, or whether it's using re-engineered footage or whatever. So yeah, it's been really, really, really useful. So thank you so much for that, guys.
Our absolute pleasure. Thanks so much, everyone.
Perfect. All right then. Thank you again to Elana, Derek, and Matt. Thanks to Rodrigo and the rest of the gang for the questions. Unless anyone has any more comments, we will wrap it up, and Elana can then go and have a little wander by the lake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely stuff.
I will send you some frozen parts of it. It's still so frozen.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't jump in. Don't do it.
Close. I'm getting close.
It's coming. Someone's coming. All
Yeah.
right. Take care,
Thanks.
gang.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye
bye. Scott, you're staying on?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have Matt. I think Derek might have missed the he has to jump off. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to, and